The stars were quiet that night, except for the soft hum of machinery in the distant frontier station. It had been years since anyone had visited this far edge of human space, and the station's metal walls creaked with the weight of age. Most people had long forgotten it, leaving only a single human to keep it alive. He was not a man who spoke much or who expected visitors. For him, the hum of engines and the occasional spark from a welder's torch were enough company. He had grown used to the silence. He moved slowly along the catwalk, checking the power conduits and making small adjustments to the systems. His hands were steady, skilled from years of work in isolation. Each tool he picked up felt like an extension of himself, a small piece of a life he had chosen, a life away from people, away from demands, away from the noise of others. The station was his home, and in it he found a strange peace. Then, without warning, the sky lit up with a streak of pale blue. A ship emerged from hyperspace, moving too fast and wobbling as if it had lost control. It was not a human ship. Its design was unlike anything he had seen before. Sleek curves of silver and violet with panels that shimmered in patterns like liquid glass. It faltered and dropped toward the station, alarms flashing on the human's console. He grabbed a panel of controls, his fingers flying over buttons and levers. The station's external magnetic clamps extended, reaching to slow the ship's descent. There was no time to panic. The hum of the engines grew louder, higher, like the ship itself was straining to survive. Then, with a sudden jolt, it landed on the makeshift landing pad, shuddering under its own weight. A thin line of smoke curled from the underside, and a low hiss of escaping gas filled the air. The human approached carefully. He could see the ship's hull was damaged. Panels were scorched, one wing bent at an impossible angle. Whoever, or whatever, was inside was in trouble. He did not know who would be inside or if they were even alive. Yet instinct told him to act. He did not call for help, did not hesitate. He moved with the calm certainty of someone who had faced problems before and knew that panic solved nothing. Inside the ship, a figure stirred. The princess of an alien world, young yet already trained in her people's strict rituals, looked around. She had traveled far, observing humans and other species as part of a secret rite. Her journey was meant to be quiet, unnoticed, a test of her patience and judgment. But she had not expected her ship to fail, not here, not now. Her sensors flickered, warning of broken systems and failing life support. She prepared herself, expecting fear or anger from the first human she might encounter. She expected someone to demand something in exchange for help. But when the hatch hissed open and she saw the human, he did not rush toward her. He did not shout or make demands. He only nodded once and stepped forward, carrying a simple tool kit. His movements were slow but deliberate. He examined the hull, tapped lightly at panels, and then began work. His silence was startling. The princess watched him through a cracked sensor window. No words, no questions, no expressions of surprise. He was not looking at her with awe or fear as most species would. He did not reach for her, did not touch her or her ship's delicate surfaces unnecessarily. He simply worked quietly, methodically, fixing what was broken. Hours passed. The human adapted to the ship's alien technology with an ease that surprised even him. He was clever, resourceful, and patient. When a panel refused to open, he improvised tools. When circuits sparked unexpectedly, he paused, studied the problem, and then found a new way. He never panicked. He never complained. The princess's curiosity grew. She had been trained to judge worth through ritual and observation. To her, the qualities she was seeing were remarkable. Patience under pressure, skill without arrogance, respect without prompting. She could see in him a quiet kind of strength, one that did not demand attention or acknowledgement. In her people's language, this was rare. Most beings acted for recognition, for praise, or for gain. He acted for the task itself. By the time the station's artificial sun began to rise, casting pale light across the landing pad, the first systems of the alien ship were restored. The hum of functioning engines filled the quiet station, mixing with the distant echoes of the human's movements. He checked each component twice, ensuring nothing was overlooked. He did not know who he was fixing the ship for, and he did not ask. The princess finally opened her hatch, stepping out in her flowing ceremonial robes. She moved with grace, observing him closely. He did not look at her immediately. He continued his work on a loose panel, tightening bolts and reconnecting wires. Only when he finished did he turn his head slightly, acknowledging her presence with a simple nod. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft but carrying authority. In her culture, words were not given lightly. Every word was measured, chosen carefully. "You have done more than anyone expected." Her eyes, large and luminous, held a depth of thought and judgment. In her people's customs, choosing a lifemate was a sacred act. The decision was based not on appearances, charm, or lineage, but on qualities revealed under challenge: patience, respect, ingenuity, restraint. Without knowing it, this human was showing every quality she valued. She stepped closer, watching him from the corner of her eye. He noticed her finally, but did not change his posture or his focus. He did not try to impress her. He did not speak unnecessary words. He simply continued his careful work, making small adjustments here and there. Hours turned into night again, and the human worked under dim light, connecting the last of the energy cells, testing the navigation systems, calibrating the life support. Each task was done with care, and the princess observed silently. She noted everything: how he adapted to unexpected problems, how he respected the boundaries of her ship, how he solved technical puzzles without frustration or anger. Each moment reinforced what she had begun to suspect, that he was extraordinary, though he did not know it. When the final system came online, the hum of the ship filled the station completely. Lights blinked in a synchronized rhythm. The engines purred. The air inside the cabin was clean, breathable, and stable. The ship was ready. The princess stepped fully into the light, facing him now. "You do not ask for reward," she said softly. "You do not seek recognition. You do not even ask my name. Why?" "Nothing more." His words were simple, honest, without embellishment. He did not lie. He did not exaggerate. In her culture, honesty and humility were signs of character, but rare. Most beings tried to impress, to control, to gain advantage. He had done none of those things. He had only acted, quietly and efficiently, and in doing so had revealed more about himself than any words could express. The princess took a deep breath. She had traveled across stars to study humans to see if they were worthy of trust, curiosity, or partnership. Many she had met were proud, quick to anger, or selfish. But this human was different. He acted without expectation. He solved problems without ego. He respected boundaries without instruction. For the first time in her life, she felt something unexpected: certainty. She knew in her deepest being that she had begun a choice that could change everything. She did not yet tell him. She did not need to. The observation alone, the silent judgment, was enough. She would wait. She would watch. Outside, the stars continued to shine, cold and distant. The frontier station remained quiet, a small dot of light at the edge of human space. Inside, the hum of engines and the quiet movements of one human and one alien princess filled the air. A connection had begun, unspoken and invisible to the rest of the universe, but powerful in ways neither of them could fully understand. The princess finally sat at the ship's observation deck, looking out at the stars. The human finished cleaning his tools, stacked them neatly, and prepared to leave, yet something inside him told him to pause. He glanced back at the ship, as if sensing the importance of what he had done. And the princess, observing him silently, smiled faintly. In her culture, actions spoke louder than words. In his culture, simplicity and honesty were rare gifts. Between them, a bridge had begun to form, a bridge that could connect worlds, cultures, and hearts. The human walked back to his small quarters in the station, exhausted but content. He did not yet know the weight of what had occurred, nor the significance of the princess's silent judgment. He only knew that the ship was fixed, and that he had done what he could. And the princess, sitting quietly in her restored ship, recorded every detail in her memory. Every motion, every choice, every small act of patience and care. She would carry this knowledge forward, knowing that it mattered more than any formal test, any ritual, any law. The stars continued to shine, and the galaxy, unaware, waited for the quiet human and the observing princess to set in motion events that would ripple far beyond the edges of known space. In the silence of the station, under the endless sky, two beings, one human, one alien, had begun a story that neither could yet fully understand. And it began with nothing more than skill, patience, and a refusal to act for anything but the task at hand. The next morning, the frontier station woke to a soft golden light that filtered through dusty windows. The hum of the alien ship's engines blended with the quiet energy of the station. The human moved as he always did, checking the panels, adjusting the power conduits, making small repairs to the aging station systems. But something was different. He could feel it in the way the air seemed heavier, in the faint vibration coming from the ship. Inside the ship, the princess moved carefully among the corridors. She had spent the night reviewing her systems, ensuring that the repairs had held. Her people valued precision, even in rest, and she could not allow a single flaw to remain unnoticed. Yet, as she walked past the observation deck, she found herself glancing toward the human's quarters. She had not spoken to him beyond a few words, and he had not asked her name. Still, the quiet confidence he had shown lingered in her mind. Her culture had strict rituals for choosing a lifemate. Every action, every reaction, every choice mattered. She had been trained to observe, to test, to judge without bias. Usually her subjects were aliens of her own species, those trained to meet her expectations, those who already understood the rules of her world. But the human, this simple, silent man, had entered her life without any knowledge of her rituals, and yet he was already passing the tests she had carefully prepared. The human, meanwhile, did not realize he was being observed. He was adjusting a control panel on the ship, checking the alignment of circuits that flickered with violet light. To him, it was just another challenge, another puzzle to solve. He did not think of the person inside the ship as a princess or even as a guest. She was someone who needed help, and he was helping. That was all. The princess decided to begin her formal observations. She activated subtle tests, small challenges she knew would reveal character without words. She deliberately delayed access to certain control panels, knowing that some beings would complain or attempt to override her commands. She introduced a minor malfunction in the navigation system, an impossible problem that required patience to solve. And she watched. The human approached each problem as he always did, without panic, without pride. When a panel refused to respond, he did not yell or demand help. He studied the components, made careful adjustments, and found another solution. When circuits sparked unexpectedly, he paused, considered the risks, and improvised a safer method. He did not complain. He did not argue. He did not try to impress. The princess watched silently, her eyes narrowing in curiosity and assessment. This was the behavior she valued most: restraint under pressure, intelligence applied with care, respect for boundaries. Most beings she encountered, even humans in high positions, would have rushed, shouted, or demanded authority. But he did none of those things. She stepped closer to the observation window, her hands resting lightly on the smooth surface. She wondered how a being so ordinary in appearance could show such extraordinary qualities. His skin was rough from years of work, his clothes plain and practical. He had no ceremonial robes, no impressive weapons, no title to command respect. Yet in every small action he revealed a strength that most could never claim. For hours the tests continued. The princess introduced minor errors, subtle mechanical glitches, and confusing readings. Each time the human adapted. Each time he demonstrated patience, skill, and a calm focus. He worked not for recognition, not for praise, but because it needed to be done. He did not wait for approval. He did not hope for acknowledgement. He acted simply because action was necessary. During breaks, the princess attempted other forms of interaction. She offered small gifts, symbolic in her culture: a vial of energy crystals, a patterned cloth woven from her planet's rare fibers, and even food she had prepared according to her people's customs. Each item carried meaning, representing trust, respect, or a subtle invitation to bond. The human accepted each gift awkwardly, unsure of the customs or their significance. He thanked her politely but without ceremony, assuming she was simply being kind. He did not realize that every gesture, every small act was a deliberate test of his character. To the princess, his reactions were revealing. He did not grasp their full meaning, yet he accepted them with humility, without greed, without manipulation. As the hours turned into days, the princess observed patterns. She noted how he adjusted tools to new purposes, how he solved mechanical puzzles that would have baffled most engineers, and how he treated her ship with reverence rather than curiosity. He respected her privacy, never entering restricted areas, never touching ceremonial items. He never asked questions beyond what was necessary. In his simplicity, he demonstrated qualities her people had long considered the mark of a true lifemate. Her advisors, meanwhile, grew uneasy. They had followed her secretly, recording her observations and ensuring her safety. When they saw the human, they were confused. Humans were known for ingenuity, yes, but they were also unpredictable, chaotic, and impatient. This one, however, defied their expectations. He did not behave like a typical human or any human they had encountered. He was quiet, deliberate, patient, and most surprisingly, respectful. The advisors approached her with concern. "Princess," one said, his voice low and urgent, "this being is human. They are short-lived, untested by our laws, and unfit to participate in the selection of a lifemate. You cannot choose them. Watch, but do not interfere." Each task required both intelligence and patience, and he applied both without pause. He did not act to impress the princess or anyone else. He acted because it was the right thing to do. The princess began to feel something she had never experienced before: certainty. Not pride, not infatuation, but a deep, steady understanding that this human possessed qualities far beyond most beings she had encountered. Strength without arrogance, patience without weakness, skill without pride. In her culture, these were the qualities that mattered most when choosing a life mate. Late one afternoon, she introduced a subtle psychological test. She created a simulated emergency, a scenario where the ship's life support seemed to fail. Most beings would panic, demand authority, or act selfishly. The human noticed the issue but did not panic. He methodically traced the problem, discovered a minor error in the power routing, and corrected it without hesitation. He did not question the source of the error. He did not complain. He did not seek recognition. The princess's eyes widened slightly. He had passed another test without knowing it even existed. She could feel her conviction growing. This human, who had arrived silently and without expectation, was proving himself in ways no noble, no warrior, no trained advisor could match. Days passed, each filled with silent observation and quiet work. The human's routine remained simple: repair, check, adjust, and repeat. The princess introduced minor challenges, subtle rituals, and cultural gestures, all designed to gauge character and worth. Each time he responded with calm logic and innate respect, never once faltering. At one point, she joined him in the ship's main chamber. He did not look up immediately, focusing instead on aligning a delicate energy conduit. When he finally glanced at her, he nodded briefly, acknowledging her presence without surprise or fear. She offered him a small piece of her culture's food, a nutrient gel infused with flavors rare on Earth. He accepted it politely, not knowing its significance, and continued working. To the princess, this simple act spoke volumes. He had accepted her gesture without manipulation, without assumption, and without expectation. He had treated her culture, her people, and her presence with genuine respect. Every small choice, every subtle interaction confirmed what she had begun to suspect. He was extraordinary in ways she could not yet explain. The advisors watched in growing alarm. They whispered among themselves, debating how to intervene. But the princess ignored them. She had seen the human's character fully revealed through his actions. Words were unnecessary. Judgments from others were irrelevant. The decision was forming quietly in her mind and heart without declaration or ceremony. One evening, as the station's lights dimmed and the stars stretched across the sky in a glittering canvas, the human finished another complex adjustment. He leaned back slightly, wiping his hands, unaware that he had been observed continuously. He did not seek attention. He did not ask for praise. He did not know that the princess had begun to see him as a potential life mate, a rare being worthy of trust, respect, and lifelong partnership. She watched him silently, the soft glow of the ship reflecting in her eyes. Her culture's rituals had prepared her for years, yet nothing could have prepared her for a human who acted with such integrity without even understanding the stakes. She realized with quiet certainty that the tests were no longer necessary. He had passed them all. Without words, without ceremony, without recognition, he had proven himself. And so, as the night deepened and the frontier station remained silent, the human and the princess continued their unspoken dance of observation and action. She had chosen, though he did not yet know it. And he, in his simple, quiet way, continued to act with the honesty, patience, and skill that had drawn her attention and respect. The stars shone over the station, vast and cold, yet inside a connection had begun. It was silent, unacknowledged, and yet undeniable. A bond formed not from words, not from ceremony, but from observation, action, and trust. And in that quiet moment, the human, unaware, unassuming, and untested, had begun to change the life of an alien princess, and perhaps unknowingly the future of more than one world. Days passed quietly, yet the frontier station was far from empty. Inside, the princess observed the human with increasing attention, her mind cataloging every choice, every movement, and every small decision. To her, the human had already passed tests that most of her species failed despite years of training. Patience, skill, respect, and quiet strength had been proven, yet she was not yet ready to reveal her thoughts. Observation was still the truest test, and she wanted to see if he would remain consistent when subtly challenged. The human, oblivious to the depth of her scrutiny, worked as he always did. He moved carefully among the ship's systems, reconnecting delicate circuits and recalibrating sensors. Each step was precise, and he never rushed. He had grown comfortable in her presence, though he had little idea of why he felt a strange sense of calm whenever she was nearby. He assumed it was the quiet of the station or the natural hum of the engines, but she knew it was something more, an unspoken connection forming without words, without intention, and without explanation. The princess decided to introduce another subtle challenge. She created a minor complication in the ship's life support system, one that would require both patience and ingenuity to fix. She also added a series of confusing sensor readings that contradicted each other, designed to test his ability to stay calm under conflicting information. Most beings would have panicked, sought help, or demanded explanations. The human, however, did none of those things. He noticed the anomalies and studied them carefully. He examined each sensor, checking connections and interpreting signals. He made small adjustments, ran simulations, and retraced his steps when a reading did not align. Hours passed, and his calm determination never faltered. The princess watched from a hidden control panel, her eyes wide with quiet admiration. Each small success reinforced her growing certainty. He was extraordinary. Meanwhile, her advisors grew increasingly uneasy. They had expected her to choose among her own kind, trained and tested according to centuries of ritual. A human, they argued among themselves, could not possibly meet the standards required of a lifemate. Short-lived, untested, and unpredictable, humans were rarely seen as worthy partners in her culture. Yet they could not deny the evidence before them. The human's actions were impeccable, his patience unyielding, and his respect unwavering. The princess ignored their protests. She had learned to trust her own judgment above all else. Words were cheap. Actions revealed the truth, and he had acted with honesty, skill, and integrity in every test she had devised without even knowing he was being tested. To continue her observation, she decided to engage him directly. She approached the main chamber, carrying a gift from her world, a small orb of energy crystals, glowing softly with patterns that shifted like liquid. It was a symbol of trust and respect in her culture, usually given only to those deemed worthy of close partnership. The human looked up as she approached, surprised but polite. "What is that?" he asked, examining the orb carefully. "It is a gift," she said softly. "A symbol of respect in my culture. You may accept it or refuse, but you must choose carefully." He did not know the significance of his acceptance, but he meant his words sincerely. The princess's eyes gleamed. His willingness to accept without manipulation, without assumption, and without greed spoke volumes. To her, he had passed yet another unspoken test. She could feel the growing certainty inside her, an unshakable recognition that he possessed qualities her own kind rarely displayed. As the day progressed, she continued her subtle examinations. She observed how he interacted with the ship's systems, noting his adaptability and calm logic. She watched how he respected boundaries, never entering restricted areas or touching ceremonial items unnecessarily. Each action was a demonstration of trustworthiness, patience, and restraint. She realized that, despite his ignorance of her rituals, he was embodying their highest ideals. The human, for his part, remained unaware of the depth of her observation. He focused on repairing minor malfunctions, adjusting controls, and ensuring the ship's systems were stable. He occasionally glanced at the princess, sensing her presence and feeling a strange comfort, but he did not understand the significance. To him, she was a passenger he had aided, nothing more. During one quiet evening, the princess decided to test his empathy and patience. She created a small malfunction in one of the ship's environmental systems, simulating a minor leak that could affect air quality if not addressed carefully. Most beings, she knew, would panic or attempt a quick, reckless fix. The human, however, methodically traced the source of the problem, identifying a loose valve that had shifted during travel. He adjusted it carefully, monitored the readings, and ensured the system returned to full functionality. The princess observed every motion, every choice, and every calculation. She noted his calm under pressure, his respect for the integrity of her ship, and his refusal to act hastily. In her culture, these were the exact qualities she valued when selecting a lifemate. Most of her people could act under stress, but few did so with both intelligence and restraint. He had demonstrated both effortlessly. Her advisors, growing increasingly anxious, tried to intervene. "Princess," one whispered, "you cannot continue this. Choosing a human goes against all our laws and customs. It will cause unrest." "Observe if you must," she said, her voice calm, "but do not interfere. This is my choice and my observation is complete. I see what I need to see." In her world, sharing food was a symbolic act, representing trust, mutual survival, and respect. She watched carefully as he accepted the meal, eating politely without complaint or greed. He did not question the unfamiliar ingredients or attempt to manipulate the situation. He simply accepted the gesture and participated with sincerity. The princess noted the subtle signals in his behavior. He did not dominate the conversation, he did not show impatience, and he did not seek recognition. In his simplicity and honesty, he revealed a character rare in her experience. Every movement, every choice, every small act confirmed her growing certainty that he was extraordinary. The human, meanwhile, was unaware of the significance of these actions. He enjoyed the meal, puzzled by the unusual flavors and textures, but felt a sense of ease in her company. He had never met anyone like her, yet her presence felt calm, steady, and reassuring. He assumed it was the quiet of the frontier station or the hum of the engines, but she knew it was something more, a connection forming naturally, without words, without intention, and without expectation. The princess began to see patterns in his behavior, patterns that reinforced her belief in his suitability. He treated all systems, all objects, and all interactions with care and respect. He remained calm under stress, solved problems logically, and acted without ego. He did not seek admiration, he did not try to impress, and he did not demand acknowledgement. In every way, he embodied the qualities her culture held in the highest regard. As the days turned into nights, the princess found herself speaking less and observing more. She allowed him to act, to solve, to repair, and to demonstrate his character without interference. Each small success reinforced her growing certainty. He was extraordinary, though he did not know it. The human, unaware of the depth of her scrutiny, continued his work with quiet determination. He adjusted circuits, repaired sensors, and ensured the ship's systems remained stable. He occasionally glanced at the princess, feeling a strange sense of connection, but he did not understand the significance. To him, she was a passenger he had aided, nothing more. Then came a moment that surprised both of them. The ship's communication array, damaged during the initial crash, began to spark with unusual energy. The human, working methodically, adjusted the circuits to stabilize the output. The princess, observing, realized that he was solving a problem that even her advisors might have struggled with. He had no prior knowledge, no training in her advanced technology, yet he was adapting, learning, and succeeding with calm precision. Her certainty deepened. She knew without question that he possessed qualities that no ritual, no test, and no law could teach. He had shown patience, skill, respect, and restraint in every situation. He had acted with integrity, intelligence, and quiet courage. He had passed every challenge, not because he understood the stakes, but because he acted correctly, naturally, and honestly. By the time the frontier station's lights dimmed for the night, the princess sat quietly in the observation deck, reviewing everything she had seen. She understood now that her choice was forming, solidifying without ceremony or declaration. The human had proven himself through action, observation, and unspoken character. And the human, preparing to rest after another long day of work, felt only a quiet sense of accomplishment. He had fixed the ship, ensured the systems were stable, and done what he could. He did not realize that his actions had already passed tests beyond his understanding, tests that would define his role in an alien culture and perhaps the future of interstellar relations. The stars shone endlessly beyond the station, cold and distant, yet inside, a silent bond was forming. Observation, action, and quiet integrity had created a connection between human and princess that neither could yet fully understand. And as the frontier station hummed softly, a quiet story was unfolding, a story that began with patience, respect, and the simple choice to do what was right, no matter who was watching. The following morning, the frontier station was alive with a subtle energy that the human could feel but could not name. The princess had spent the night reviewing her observations again, weighing each action, each choice, and each silent gesture the human had made over the past days. She had made her decision. Though she had not yet told anyone, the choice was no longer tentative, it was certain. Her advisors had grown restless. They whispered among themselves, pacing the corridors of the ship while the human worked quietly on minor calibrations. "It cannot be," one said, his voice low but urgent. "The princess cannot choose a human. It would violate centuries of tradition, destabilize alliances, and confuse the entire council. She must be guided to select one of her own kind." When the human entered the main chamber to inspect the power systems, the princess rose to meet him. She carried no gifts this time, no ritual object or ceremonial symbol. Instead, she spoke directly, her voice steady. I have observed you for many days. You do not understand my culture, my people, or the rituals that guide my life. Yet you have passed tests that my most trained nobles could not. For what? He felt as if the universe had tilted slightly and he was trying to regain balance. I can't, he said finally. I don't know your laws, your rituals, or your people. I'm not ready for something like this. I only fixed your ship, that's all. His refusal, spoken honestly, only confirmed what she already knew. He was the right choice. He did not act out of ambition, pride, or self-interest. He acted with honesty and integrity. Meanwhile, her advisors were growing increasingly alarmed. They had followed her from her homeworld, expecting guidance and compliance. Seeing a human declared as a potential lifemate shocked them beyond comprehension. Princess, one protested, this is impossible. A human cannot meet our laws or our expectations. You must reconsider. You may leave if you wish, but you will not interfere. You may not recognize it, but you are worthy. And now the highest honor in a distant culture had been offered to him, not for wealth or power, but for integrity. The advisors whispered urgently among themselves, debating how to intervene. We cannot allow this, one said. It will set a precedent that cannot be undone. If a human becomes the princess's lifemate, our traditions are meaningless. It will be chaos. I don't know your world. How can I do this? The qualities my people value cannot be taught. You have them naturally. That is why I have chosen you. His actions had already defined him. In the following hours, she began explaining her choice to her advisors formally. She recounted his patience, his ingenuity, his respect for boundaries, and his quiet courage. She described how he had solved impossible problems, accepted cultural gestures without misunderstanding, and acted with honesty at every step. Each example reinforced her decision. The advisors listened, some grudgingly, some skeptically. They could not deny the evidence, though they wished to argue. Their culture emphasized obedience and tradition, yet here was a human, simple, quiet, and unassuming, proving himself superior to many of their most accomplished nobles. The human, still hesitant, continued working on the ship's systems as they debated. He focused on stabilizing energy conduits, aligning sensors, and adjusting the navigation array. He did not argue, he did not seek approval, and he did not demand recognition. He continued exactly as he had from the start, solving problems because they existed, not because he wanted reward. Late that evening, the princess approached him again. I know you feel unprepared, she said softly. That is understandable, but know this, worth is not measured by training, by status, or by knowledge. It is measured by integrity, patience, and action. You have shown all of these. You have already passed every test without even realizing it. I'm not used to being chosen for anything. The princess continued her observation as well, noting every small action, every quiet moment of integrity. She knew now that the human's qualities would endure beyond immediate tasks, beyond initial appearances. Her advisors, still uneasy, debated strategies for the future. Some argued that she should be persuaded to select a noble of her own species, someone trained and prepared for the role. Others admitted, reluctantly, that the human had demonstrated extraordinary character. None of them could deny that his actions had proven his worth in ways that traditional training could not replicate. The human, meanwhile, remained blissfully unaware of the broader implications. He fixed minor malfunctions, calibrated complex systems, and ensured the ship was fully operational. His focus was entirely on the work at hand, his mind occupied by problems to solve rather than political or cultural consequences. Yet, unknowingly, he was redefining perceptions of humans in an alien culture. One evening, the princess joined him in the main chamber, not to test, but to share quiet company. They worked together in silence, adjusting systems, reviewing panels, and monitoring sensors. Words were unnecessary. Each action spoke volumes. She observed his methodical efficiency, his careful handling of delicate components, and his unwavering respect for boundaries. For the human, the presence of the princess was comforting, though he could not explain why. He felt a subtle warmth in her calm observation, a reassurance in her silent acknowledgement. He assumed it was the quiet companionship of another being, yet she knew it was more, a bond forming without ceremony, without expectation, and without force. The advisors, still watching from the background, whispered among themselves. This is unprecedented, one said. We have never observed a human chosen in this way. Yet there is no doubt, by every measure of action and character, he is worthy. The human had shown all of these. And so, as the frontier station hummed softly beneath the endless stars, a quiet revolution unfolded. The human, unaware of the choice that had been made, continued his work with calm determination. The princess, certain in her judgment, prepared to face the challenges of her culture, confident that the being she had chosen would prove extraordinary in every way. In the silence of the night, two beings, one human, one alien, continued their unspoken partnership. Actions spoke louder than words, observation outweighed ceremony, and integrity outshone tradition. And as the stars twinkled endlessly beyond the station, the quiet human had begun to change not only the heart of a princess, but the perception of an entire culture. The day dawned quiet and still at the frontier station, though beneath the calm, currents of tension flowed. Word of the princess's choice had reached her homeworld. Messages and emissaries were already in transit, though they had yet to arrive. Her advisors had remained steadfast by her side, attempting in small, polite ways to influence her decision, but they could not sway her. She had observed the human, she had judged his actions, and she had made her choice. The human continued his work on the ship, unaware of the growing attention from the princess's people. He adjusted circuits, calibrated sensors, and repaired minor malfunctions, focused entirely on the task before him. He had long since stopped thinking about recognition, reward, or acknowledgement. That was not why he acted. He acted because problems existed and could be solved, and in his mind, that was reason enough. The princess approached him again, carrying nothing but her presence. She did not speak at first. She simply watched him work, noting how he handled delicate components with care, how he moved with confidence and precision, and how he never allowed impatience or frustration to guide his actions. Each movement, each decision reaffirmed her certainty. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm but resolute. "The time has come for others to know of my choice. You have shown qualities that no training, no ritual, no law could teach. Patience, integrity, skill, and respect. For these and for your actions alone, I have chosen you as my life mate. I don't know your people, your rules, your world. I'm just a human." "This is impossible," one said. "A human cannot meet the expectations of her world. It will create unrest, confusion, and disruption. That is all that matters. You need only to continue being who you are." It could come from doing what was right simply because it was right, without expectation of reward. Days passed, and the station became a quiet hub of preparation. Messages had reached the princess's homeworld, and emissaries were traveling to observe the situation firsthand. Some came expecting conflict, others curiosity, but all were unsure what they would witness. They had heard whispers of a human chosen as lifemate, a choice that defied centuries of law and tradition. When the emissaries arrived, they were met with a scene that surprised them beyond measure. The human worked calmly, adjusting delicate systems with precision and care. The princess observed him with steady confidence, her expression calm, her demeanor certain. No ceremony had yet been declared, no official statement made, yet the power of action was clear. An emissary stepped forward, voice formal but skeptical. "Princess, you cannot, this human, he is untrained, unprepared, and unfit to participate in such a sacred choice. This is not acceptable. He has shown qualities beyond what your laws or rituals can measure. Patience, skill, respect, and integrity, these define worth in the way that matters most. By these measures, he is extraordinary." The human, they realized, was not imposing himself. He was not demanding power or recognition. He was simply acting rightly, solving problems, and continuing his work. And the princess, they saw, had judged him wisely. The human, still processing the weight of events, spoke quietly. "I don't even know what to say. I'm just me. I fix things. I don't know if I can be what your people expect." His calm logic, patience, and respect were evident to all. He did not boast, he did not dominate, and he did not seek approval. Every action reinforced the wisdom of the princess's choice. The human, though unaware of the full significance, began to feel a subtle shift in the atmosphere. He noticed the way the princess observed him, the way her advisors and emissaries seemed hesitant to interfere, and the quiet acknowledgement of his actions. He realized that something important was happening, though he did not yet understand what it meant. The princess continued her observation, not out of doubt, but out of habit and care. She knew that worth revealed itself over time, and she wanted to ensure that his qualities would endure in every situation. Each day confirmed her decision. Each action he took, each problem he solved, each moment of patience and respect reinforced her certainty. Then came a moment that would define the future of their bond. A minor system failure occurred in one of the ship's energy conduits, a problem that could have escalated if mishandled. The human approached it calmly, studying the components and tracing the fault with careful precision. He corrected the issue efficiently, without panic or complaint. The princess observed him silently, her heart steady with certainty. She knew that this was more than a simple repair. It was another confirmation of his character. She understood now that worth was not measured by status, training, or appearance, but by action, judgment, and integrity. And he had proven himself in every way. Her advisors, though still hesitant, began to recognize the truth. Words and traditions could not capture the essence of character, and here was evidence, in the form of a human, that sometimes the simplest actions spoke louder than ceremony. They realized that their initial objections, though understandable, were irrelevant. The human had demonstrated qualities beyond measure. The princess approached him quietly after the repair. "You have done everything I could hope for and more," she said. "By your actions, you have proven your worth. You do not need to understand fully or prepare or claim anything. You have already earned it. I promise I will continue to act as I always have." The acknowledgement was quiet, deliberate, and dignified. It required no action from the human beyond being himself, and in that there was great beauty. When the time came to present him formally, emissaries and advisors gathered around, expecting tension, conflict, or struggle. Instead, they witnessed a simple truth. The human stood quietly, the princess beside him, both calm, both composed. No words were needed. Actions had already told the story. Patience, skill, integrity, and respect, these qualities, demonstrated naturally, had spoken louder than centuries of ritual. The emissaries were silent, some in awe, some in reluctant admiration. The human had done nothing extraordinary in appearance or claim, yet his presence, his calm actions, and his quiet courage had redefined worth in the eyes of an entire culture. The princess turned to him, her expression serene. "You have changed more than you know," she said. "Not only for me, but for all who witness this. Your actions have shown that greatness does not require ambition, power, or ceremony. It requires honesty, patience, and integrity. You have shown all these without even knowing the consequences." Yet here, in the vast reaches of space, he realized that quiet action, integrity, and patience were more powerful than he had ever understood. The days that followed were filled with quiet work and calm companionship. The princess remained by his side, observing, supporting, and acknowledging him not through words, but through shared experience. The human continued to act as he always had, unaware of the full impact he had made, yet entirely changing the perceptions of those around him. And in that quiet, unassuming way, the frontier station became a symbol. Humanity's quiet ingenuity, patience, and respect had been recognized not through battle, conquest, or spectacle, but through simple, deliberate, and honest action. The princess had chosen her life mate, and in doing so, she had chosen a future where human qualities, integrity, humility, patience, and courage, were acknowledged across the stars. The stars shone endlessly beyond the station, distant and silent, yet the actions of one quiet human had resonated far beyond their reach. The princess beside him, the advisors and emissaries observing, and the human himself, unaware of the full magnitude of his impact, had created a moment that would endure, not through noise or power, but through action, integrity, and quiet courage. In the calm of the frontier station, under the endless sky, the human and the princess began a journey together, not marked by ceremony or spectacle, but by trust, respect, and the simple power of doing what is right. And though the galaxy watched from afar, it was the quiet, deliberate choices of a single human that had reshaped not only a princess's heart, but the understanding of worth itself.